Hey, what's going on, guys? TheHORRORman back with the next Top 20 for 2020. This time I'll be counting down my top 20 favorite horror sequels. The Top 20 for 2020 series was created by myself and Jason from Horrific Nightmares. Twice a month we randomly select a theme and rank our top 20 favorite horror films that fit that theme. The rules are as follows. We can only include 20 films, no honorable mentions. We can only feature one film per franchise. And Jason and I only include films that we actually own on physical media. The randomly selected theme this time was horror sequels. I will start at number 20 and count down to number 1, my favorite horror sequel. And as with all my other rankings, please keep in mind this is just my personal opinion. I will also keep this video as brief as possible. So, here we go. My top 20 for 2020 of my top 20 favorite horror sequels. Coming in at number 20 is Puppet Master 2. I just felt Puppet Master needed to have some presence on this list because there are so many Puppet Master sequels. And Puppet Master 2 is my favorite of all of them. At number 19 is Victor Crowley. I know this gets a lot of hate from some people, but I absolutely love it. In fact, I love all of the Hatchet films. Victor Crowley just happens to be my favorite of the sequels. Coming in at number 18 is Scream 3. Once again, I love all of the Scream films, but Scream 3 stands out to me simply because it has one killer, and I consider it to be the best killer in the franchise. At number 17 is Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. This is my favorite of all the TCM films, including the original. My number 16 pick is a modern-day horror sequel. It's Leprechaun Returns. This went the same route as Halloween 2018 and ignored all of the other sequels. It did it right, and this is what a horror sequel should be. At number 15 is another horror sequel I actually prefer to the original. It's Return of the Living Dead 3. I mean, come on. This movie features probably the sexiest zombie of all time. Personal preference definitely plays a big role in my number 14 pick, The Understudy, Graveyard Shift 2. This is of course the sequel to Graveyard Shift, also known as Central Park Drifter. And while the first film is obviously the better film, there's just something I prefer about the sequel. Maybe it's the nostalgia or the setting. I love the fact that it's a vampire film about a vampire auditioning for the role of a vampire on a film set. It's sort of a movie within a movie, and I like that. Coming in at number 13 is a horror sequel with one of the best dance sequences and one of the funniest lines of all time. It's A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. This is another one that gets a lot of hate, but I think this movie is so much fun. At number 12 is yet another sequel I prefer to the original. It's The Strangers Pray at Night. This one definitely has more of a slasher vibe to it. I love the soundtrack, I love the characters, and this movie is just awesome. My number 11 pick is a horror sequel that probably won't be making anyone else's lists, but I love it. It's Hard to Die. Hard to Die is Sorority House Massacre 3, and I actually reviewed this one for Slasher Sequels Week earlier this year during the Slashback Challenge. It's a blast, and it's definitely worthy of this ranking. We're into the top 10 now with a movie I will probably be watching later this week. It's Jaws 2. Once again, this is a sequel I prefer to the original. As much as I love the original Jaws, Jaws 2 has that slasher vibe to it. The way it plays out is basically a slasher film, and because of that, it easily makes my top 10. Coming in at number 9 is my favorite sequel to my favorite vampire franchise, Bloodlust, Subspecies 3. Although I do prefer the original Subspecies, Bloodlust Subspecies 3 is a very close second. At number 8 is Creepshow 2. This is a sequel I watch more than the original. It's not to say that I prefer it, but then again, maybe I do. I love all three stories in this one, especially the raft. Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride. Coming in at number 7 is a sequel to my all-time favorite horror film, The Evil Dead. It's Army of Darkness. This here is the limited edition Anchor Bay release, limited to only 4,000 copies. as opposed to the other limited edition limited to 30,000 copies. At number 6 is my favorite of all the Child's Play films, and coincidentally, it's the 6th film in the franchise, Curse of Chucky. Coming in at number 5 is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I probably watched this one more than any of the other Halloween sequels. I absolutely love it. Poor Ted Hollister. Coming in at number 4 is Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. At one time, I considered this to be my favorite horror sequel. And although it's no longer number 1, it's still one of my favorites. We are into the top 3 now with my favorite 80s slasher film of all time, Friday the 13th, Part 2. It's another sequel I prefer to the original. I love this one. It's the ultimate 80s slasher film, and it's my number 3 favorite horror sequel. The runner-up at number 2 is Phantasm 2. Phantasm is my favorite horror franchise overall, and Phantasm 2 is my favorite of the sequels. With that being said, I sort of rank the Phantasm films in order. So while I do prefer the original, Phantasm 2 is a close second. Just like on this ranking, because it's here at number 2. If you think about it, I'm sure you can guess what takes the top spot, because I'm sure it will for a lot of you. My number 1 favorite horror sequel is Dawn of the Dead. I mean, that's what this is. It's a horror sequel. It's a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. I don't think anyone is arguing that. Not only is this my favorite horror sequel of all time, it's one of my all-time favorite horror films in general. Dawn of the Dead is an absolute masterpiece, and it's my number 1 favorite horror sequel. So there you have it, guys, my top 20 for 2020 of my top 20 favorite horror sequels. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. And be sure to check out Jason's top 20 for 2020. As always, we also invite you to join in. We'd love to see your top 20. Thanks for watching, guys. Be kind, subscribe.